This is the Lockpicking Lawyer, and the lock I have for you today is the Avocet Mark III ABS cylinder. This cylinder really has a ton of neat security features in it. It's a pin-in-pin dimple lock. It has a magnetic pin that's actuated by a little magnet that's in the key. We have 6 trap pins. We have as much drill protection as I've ever seen in a lock, and definitely the most advanced anti-snap features that I've ever seen. This lock is sufficiently unusual that what I want to do is take it apart before we do the pick and gut so you can see what's inside and better understand the challenges that we will face. So this will be a multi-part video. In the next part, I will have the lock apart and explain all the features to you. And in the final part, we will do a pick and gut. So I'm going to cut the video for a moment and then show you what's inside. Okay, I have the lock apart now. Let me show you what we're going to have to deal with as we pick this. First, the normal stuff. We have 4 pin-in-pin chambers in slots 1, 2, 3, and 5. Key pins look exactly like you would expect here, look very similar to those used in a multi-lock. The driver pins are a little bit different. You can see they went with a slightly different approach with full-size springs for the driver pin, the inner and outer driver pins. And like you see in slot 5, they fit right into each other, and this is how they sit in the core itself. Now for slot 4. 4 is different than everything else because that is where our magnetic pin is. And I have that still sitting in the core, and we can see it here. In the resting position, that pin actually sticks up into the Bible. And what the magnet does when you insert the key is it actually sucks that pin down and allows the core to turn. It's a pretty neat little feature. It's totally backwards from what we're used to seeing, where pins have to be pressed up. So we're going to have to think of a way to deal with that. My first impression was to throw a magnet down the keyway. It'll stick to the only piece of steel there, which is this tiny little pin in number 4, and that'll suck it down and we'll be good to go. However, I think they thought of that, and that is what these 2 large blocks of steel are in slot 6. They fit in the bottom of the core right here. I can't think of any other possible use for them. It's possible they're there for some feature of this lock or feature that this company offers in other locks. But to be perfectly honest, I think they're just there to attract magnets. So that's going to stop us from any unskilled magnetic attacks, just pressing something down in there. But I have a couple ideas on how to deal with that, and I'll show you them in a moment. Finally, we have in slot 7 our 6 trap pins. Much like the Hugo lock I showed you a week or so ago, these go on the side, on both sides of the core. So we'll have to deal with them as we do this. And when I pick, I'll make a full 360-degree turn so you can see how I deal with all the trap pins, how they fall into the key pin holes, and how they fall into the side of the keyway. Finally, one other really cool thing about this lock that I'm not going to show you until the very end, and that is active snap protection. This has a spring-loaded mechanism that prevents snapping locks from being a useful tool against it. So I'll show you that in a few minutes. First, I'll put everything back together and we will pick this open. Okay, I have everything back together and we are about to start what is probably the most procedurally complex picking I have done in a long time. Now, looking on the internet, I have seen keys for this lock with this magnet in a couple different positions. So I think the first job that we have as pickers is to find out where that magnetic chamber is. And all we do is reach back and look for where there's no key pins. And for this one, it's in slot 4. Now I indexed my finger when I was in there on slot 4 so that this pick is right over that slot. That allows me to reach in and find it quickly. And the reason I want to do that is because I am putting this small neodymium magnet on the tip of my pick, and I'm going to reach in there and try to place it right underneath that chamber. Okay, and I think I got it in place. Let me get a little light and look in there and make sure. Yep, I think we got that where it belongs. Now let's get some tension in there and start our pick. Okay, looking for binding outer pins. Got one on 1, one on 2, little click out of 3, going back to 5 now. Okay, 5, we got him. Okay, pulling back, it feels like we dropped 3. And I think we have all of our pin-in-pin chambers. I got some movement on the core, but not so much that it would indicate that we only have inner driver pins left. What that probably means is we don't have the magnetic chamber picked. So what I'm going to do is reach into that chamber, release a little bit of tension, and then just play with that magnet a bit and see if we can get it to release. And there we go, got it. Now, we have only inner driver pins left, but we have one more thing to do before we finish that pick. And that is a small button in the back of the keyway that needs to be pressed. Why do we need to do this? Well, if you have sharp eyes, you notice that the cam back here didn't turn when we rotated this. That's because the button needs to be pressed for about the first 1/8 of a turn. Otherwise, the cam won't engage. So we might have to do a little counter rotation. We might have turned the core too far to push that button. And let me do that now. There we go, got it. So I'm going to hold that button in while, switch to a different pick so I can go from the other side while I finish this. Look for the inner driver pins, got one on 2. I don't think we have one on 3. Now I'm on 5. There we go, got it. Okay, let's pull everything out. And if we can, I'm going to retrieve our magnet. There's really no reason to keep it in there anymore. There we go, got it. Okay, now if I rotate it just a tiny bit more, we're going to engage the trap pins on the left side. So once more into the breach, dear friends. Okay, we've engaged them. Let me deal with them. Got one on 1, and actually the back 2 didn't engage. Okay, that's unusual, but let's keep going. I usually would have maybe 1 that wouldn't engage when we pass, but never 2. That's excellent. Okay, next thing, we need to stop these trap pins from falling into the side of the keyway. My tension wrench is not long enough to do that, so I'm going to place a small wiper insert right in there and hold it in place with my tension wrench, and that will stop the trap pins on both sides as well as the driver pins from falling into the keyway. So let's keep turning, and we're about to engage the trap pins on the right side. And you can probably, actually let me turn this just a bit so you can see them. You can see they actually drop down into those pinholes. Okay, let's keep turning and let's get those dealt with. Okay, got number 1, 2, and 3. Okay, there we go, the full 360 degrees. So like I promised, a very, very procedurally complex pick. There we go. Okay, let's take this guy apart. I'll show you everything inside, and I will also show you that active snap protection I talked about. Okay, taking this lock apart, the first thing we need to do is remove these 2 pins. You can see right at the top there, and I already have them most of the way out. Hopefully I'll just be able to push them out. Okay, this allows the halves to separate, and if you look down in the hole right here, you can see a little pin, and when I pull this out, that pin pops up. And what that pin popping up does is it attaches the cam mechanism to the inner cylinder. That means the outer cylinder will no longer work. The only way to make the outer cylinder work again is to take the whole lock apart and reset that pin. So if by some chance you snap the front of this lock off, you can see it has the passive snap protection, and then after that you're able to snap the whole back of the lock off, you still won't be able to turn the cam because of that active mechanism. Really, really interesting stuff. Okay. Okay, the next thing for taking this lock apart is we need a 0.9 millimeter hex wrench to remove, come on, focus, to remove this little piece that keeps the core from coming out. There are 0.9 millimeter hex screws on either side. I think we just have to remove one of those, so let's do that now. Okay. And finally, this lock is a bear to disassemble, lots of little pieces. So what I'm going to do is insert a couple of shims, if I can get them in, to keep me from messing this up too badly as we go through the gutting process. They don't seem to want to go in. There we go. Got that one in. Okay, hopefully that will give us a little bit of protection. Okay, now I just dropped the ball bearing out of the side right here. That's nothing but a little detent to give the core some bias in the position where it opens. Drop these 2 little slugs of steel out. Now let's drop the rest of our key pins. There they are, from 1, 2, 3. Our magnetic assembly from 4, and the key pins from 5. Let me arrange them, and then we'll go ahead and get all the rest of the driver pins out. Okay, let's get our shims out of the way. Going to drop all of our trap pins in slot 8. Okay, what just fell out was a piece of drill protection from the top of the core. I think there's one other one. Let's see if we can get him to fall out just so. Oh, he's already fallen out, so he won't give us trouble later. Okay, here's our driver pins from slot 1. Slot 2. You've obviously seen all of this before. Then we have 2 more trap pins around slot 3. our driver pins from slot 3, the receptacle for that magnetic pin. Then we have 2 more trap pins at slot 6. And our slot 6 driver pins. Okay, we got everything apart, but let me show you a couple other features before I give you a zoom in of this. On the core itself, or on the lock body itself, you can see we have a few pieces of drill protection, one right up front in front of the pin stack, then a couple between slots 1 and 2, between 3 and 4, and between 5 and 6. So quite a bit of drill protection there. And then on the core itself, we have a bunch of drill protection. We have a little half moon right here in front of the pin stack, and then we have another 6 pins spread around that. So really interesting stuff. Okay, I'll give you a quick zoom in on these pins, though we already discussed everything, so you've seen them before. We have all of our key pins, pin in pin. We have our driver pin in pin. We have our interesting magnetic assembly in slot 4. We have our slugs in slot 7 to prevent an unskilled magnet attack. We have all of our trap pins in slot 8, and then we have the core for this lock. So I think that's it. Sorry for this really long video, but this has been the Avocet ABS Mark III Euro Profile Cylinder. If you have any questions or comments about this, please put them below. If you like this video and would like to see more like it, please subscribe. And as always, have a nice day. Thank you.